All right, cool. Welcome back to another episode of Between Two Buildings. I'm your host, Matt Sampson, head of sales and growth here at NavigatorCRE. I've got Taylor Odegard, our CEO and founder, as always, and we're joined by special guest today. Who we have, Taylor?
This is George, the Stash Rushin, CTO of Navigator, and going to give us a full breakdown of the life of the build versus buy and prop tech and real estate.
Right. The people,
George, thanks for
the
joining
people,
us.
the people demanded it, and so here I am. Right.
N- Newly
Yeah.
minted CTO. But thanks for joining, George.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. Um, Thought maybe we'd start with like what your team's been up to since the year started. We're about 4+ months in, and curious on what your team's been working on and what's got you excited for the beginning of the year here.
Yeah. It feels like a full year. So it's been a lot over the first 3 months. So big investment in infrastructure. So we've been focused on a couple things. So one is really we've committed on our a full migration over to Microsoft Fabric architecture, like across the board. And so really, and I'll say this 100 times, but like we're trying to like future proof has kind of been the mantra of the team. And so we're trying to make sure that our the back end of the application, the stuff that nobody ever sees, the underlying bedrock is set up for as far into the future as we could like foreseeably see, kind of like look ahead to. And so migration to Microsoft Fabric. This gives us a lot of flexibility too, as far as our importantly for customers, uh, like our product offerings. So we've been able to really split things up into distinct custom like workspaces for different customers, individual fabric capacities for certain customers, like when we're talking about some of the government work and with the bigger like enterprise contracts that we've been working on, which really resonates with the technology side of the business that we're engaging with. So that's we've really been responding to that demand for flexibility with tooling and things like that on the customer side. So that's been one big thing. And then the other thing has really been investment on the AI side. And so we have a couple partnerships on that side. I'll highlight Box AI and our expanded partnership with them over the like front part of this year, really allowing really customers to use like the right tool for the right jobs for things like lease extraction and reviewing contracts and things like that. Again, like responding to customer demand, how can we make Navigator more of a hub instead of just kind of okay, we're stopping it for analytics. We got that part dialed. Part of the things I'm reasoning over, things like leases, how do can Navigator help me with that part of it as well? The answer is yes, we can. And so just developing out those features to be more full.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've seen that in action. Some of our customers have seen it in demos. It's very cool. We're going to continue to build out those agents over time, correct?
That's right. That's right. So we have a full, we have some excellent ones right now, and then what we like about Box is we are unlimited there as how we do build those out. So as customer use cases arise, we can pick the right underlying model for the
Mhm.
the particular use case, build an agent specifically for that customer, and if it's something that works that's something that we can, potentially leverage for like for other clients, at least from like an ideation standpoint. We have Box also allows us to keep strict guardrails on that customer data piece, which is their bread and butter and has been forever. So we
Yep.
like that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, that's a huge critical piece.
Yeah.
Great. So, I want to get your perspective on something, George. So, as CTO, and someone who purchases technology yourself, what can you share sort of with our audience on how to go about that process the right way? And what do you think about when it comes to making investments in the tech stack? And in particular, when is it the right time to build something in-house or to make a decision and go out to market and buy? And sort of what do you think makes the conditions right for sort of either path, if you will?
Yeah, yeah. So I will share a way because there's I'm sure a whole bunch of different ways to buy technology. If I was running like, I don't know, Blackstone or something, I would have a different perspective. But like What I try to impart on customers is just what's worked for me. So there's some decision chain that happens in any sort of like technology buying process. And so you look at the
Mhm.
technology, okay, great. Like we really want it. And then selfishly from like a CTO standpoint, I look at it from, is this something that like, can my team just build this? Because everybody likes to build new stuff and it's cool and it's fun. And like, that's why a lot of, especially developers that I work with, that's why they got into the work that they got into is to build.
Right.
So can we build it? Yes or no? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no. If the answer is no, right? If we're looking at like the decision tree, okay,
Mhm.
no, choose Navigator, or for me, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to use like that product. Okay, the answer is yes. How long is it going to take to build, and then how much is it going to cost me to build it? And sometimes you can't afford either one of those things. Like maybe it won't be very expensive to build, but it's going to be time expensive. And when I say expensive, I mean
Mhm.
even then it's still going to be costing you man hours, typically, right? For somebody to
Right.
Yeah.
there's a resource allocation component of that. So, how expensive is going to be like, and you might as a technology buyer, if you're looking at analytics platform like Navigator, yeah, you know what? Actually, I think my team, I have a staff of 20. I think we could put something together. I guarantee after you get done, even with some basic napkin math, you're going to realize that it's going to cost you way more to develop a solution that is going to be even if it can check like the analytics box, you have to think through like the entirety of the process, like the infosec component, the underlying
Yep.
like underlying data architecture component. Can I support that? Can I support that ongoing?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because people have to do that. Like that's not something that you can throw together
Yeah,
and
and who's going to breathe into it and keep that thing alive over
exactly,
time?
right? Like
Because
there's that ongoing
that's
component. And
those
so
are the horror stories we've heard of people doing the build and spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on products that they kind of get to the business team and then they're kind of DOA if they can't continue to support that infrastructure or they've spent so long in building it that by the time they deliver it, it's already out of date by 6 months to a year.
yeah,
And now you're on this kind of never ending cycle of trying to
Yep.
figure like playing catch up. Do I, scotch tape and bubble gum this thing together and try to get it to the business team, or do we try to move to a more of a market enterprise evergreen platform that's going to stay up with the times and we just get to infuse our business intelligence and logic and business rules into a platform that's kind of turnkey, like
right.
engines running and already rolling.
Right. So I guess I'll leave it at Matt. Like the what I try to impart, what I try to do myself and I try to impart on others is like take the ego out of it.
Mhm.
A year from now, no one's going to care if your team built the solution or if you bought it off the shelf and your team like breathed into it and like configured it, supported it, right? And put all that together. It's going to be the stakeholders who on the business side who have been asking for this. If it's delivering for them, you're you look good, right? Like
Yep.
you end up being the star of the show no matter what. Like nobody cares. So that's what I would say broadly.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's great, George. And there's also like some risk too, right? With tribal knowledge or with somebody maybe leaving the business or retiring in some cases, right? Like with a
Yeah.
platform like a Navigator, you've got it, as you say, evergreen, and it's something you can still configure and breathe into, but there's less risk of, perhaps losing your in-house expert or
Right.
any number of risks you might run into, right?
Right. Because then the really the responsibility that you have is imparting like the business rules on the technology. And
Hmm.
obviously that's going to evolve over time along with your business. And you're just and then Navigator just follows suit. And you don't have to worry about, yes, that's a good point, Matt. Like all the underlying stuff, people who might shift around or move or leave or
Yeah.
whatever about
Yeah.
that.
Or having a consultant build you something and they drop it on your desk and then they walk away and how do I even run this thing or turn this thing on? I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
another horror story we've heard of from the marketplace of just things that get had in good intention from the outset,
Right.
but they
Hmm.
didn't think about like future proofing it and who's going to keep this thing alive and if and when we need to change or the business changes or something like AI comes along, is this thing set up to embrace AI and things like that? And if no, then you kind of have a dead on arrival product.
Right. And
Right.
like one of the things we always say is like, for the cost of an analyst, we provide you,
A
like
platform.
a entire platform. And so what you're end up like Taylor, it's a good point, right? So you end up either with the consulting engagement is over, and now you're left having to manage that. So now you still have to hire that analyst. So you still got that cost.
Hmm.
Or I don't say worse yet, but I've also had this happen where, okay, you get a software, and now I have to spend a whole bunch of money on the consulting side for service in perpetuity. So
Right.
now I still have a bill
Yeah.
every month. And so I think obviously it depends on anyone's use case, but like there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, and you kind of end up spending more money by trying to build it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some of the metrics that we kind of ran and saw is on average, if you're going to build a core data enterprise, from data lake architecture all the way through to reporting, analytics, and business user teams,
Hmm.
typically that process can take, anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get to a prototype, and usually in sometimes long as 2 to 5 years to just go through the process of where's the data, getting it brought into a centralized model, getting it organized, cataloged, audited, medallion architectured for
Yeah.
production. All the while, the business team's still living in Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint. So the goal is you gotta start fast and finish strong in any one of these engagements. And if especially with I would say the velocity of how technology has moved over the last 24
Yeah.
months with the AI and what it can do. But more beyond that, just think about it this way: is developers and data engineers and software engineers using AI to expedite their own work, meaning they're still writing
Hmm.
their own code. They're still writing very thoughtful architecture, but they're able to accelerate the timeline for code review and check-ins and bugs and things like that. What's happening is you're actually getting very, very proficient software and data engineers getting better at their work. That's a force multiplier for them. They're not relying on AI to write any code. They're leveraging AI to accelerate their own aptitudes, which we've seen in our own team has been, I mean, absolutely off the charts. The ability for them to design, build, deploy, test, and it's been an amazing velocity that we've seen, and I know that other teams are starting to take advantage of that.
Yeah. One other thing I'll add is I think what sometimes is not considered. It's always considered by like a CISO or a CIO, but it's not always considered by like the maybe the we'll say the group of people making decision on whether or not to build or buy. Is that infosec component? That's another ongoing consideration, and even if like okay, you say I'm going to build something in house, and that ends up being you're in it almost invariably you're going to be boxed into what that can be, unless you want to really start branching out what's going to be in scope for any sort of like infosec on your side. So
Mhm.
I know this happens a lot, like when we have like an inbound from publicly traded companies, they want to know what our SOC posture is. Like, are you guys HIPAA compliant? Like all these things, all these hoops that we've I don't want to say hoops that we've jumped through, right? But like the security posture that we've built over
Yeah.
years, right? And the relationships that we've created on the GRC side and on the advisory side to help us like thoughtfully navigate the construction of a platform that can serve all sorts of different needs.
Mhm.
Um, you're either going to have to do that yourself, which you might have the stomach for, but that I can tell you it costs, both in time and money. And then
Yeah.
if you don't, then you're gonna say, okay, we're on. I don't, or, we're gonna use like Google Sheets or something like that. If that's your, if you're on like GCP or something like that,
Yeah.
you're into what kind of solution you can choose. And so I think that's another consideration there too, is eventually, your investors are going to want to know how you guys are managing your data, or they, might want to know you're going to have to produce that. And that's a question you want to be able to answer. You want to have the right answer for us.
Mhm. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, certainly. So, Taylor, you mentioned it a second ago, but a big part of our philosophy is starting fast, finishing strong. And the cornerstone experience and methodology is really, I think, how we immediately show customers that kind of out of the gates. So really for either of you, but just would like some thoughts here on, sort of what customers can expect. And I think like the argument of the other side of the coin to a cornerstone approach is, listen, we're unique. Our investment committee has a certain way that we look at things. And, in this sector, the managing director is used to seeing, our data and NOI and Walt's laid out a certain way. So we have to build it ourselves because, we're too far down this path. So what would be sort of your thought on on that? Because it's something we
Mhm.
hear all the time, right? And folks think they're unique, and every customer is a little bit different. But
Yeah.
we've seen a lot over the years, and in 11 plus years of being a company. Like, what would be your sort of response to that?
Well, I think the goal of Cornerstone was to take and kind of deduce down of all these different like business use cases that come together in the world of commercial real estate. And, they kind of take the commercial side and then the residential multifamily side, if you will, kind of break them
Hmm.
into two. And as much as people think they're unique, about 90% of what everyone does is the same. Occupancy is occupancy, rents are rents, age receivables are age receivables, income expenses below the line. It's very similar. And so the idea of Cornerstone is that if you basically focus on the core strategy of your properties, your units, your leases, your age receivables, your financials, your rent roll, if you will, maybe
Hmm.
debt as one kind of extra element. With just those core things of Cornerstone, you can get to about 90% of all the analytics you'd ever need to know about your portfolio and with speed, meaning you're not getting a report once a month on how the team's doing. You daily are getting daily bread on occupancy changes and new tenants hitting the AR schedule or finances. You've got the capex that's upcoming. You're finding out about it the day it hits the ledger versus a month
Hmm.
later when you see a big number.
Yep.
The goal is that last 10% that we provide in Cornerstone, once we've rolled out your core data sets and integrated everything and it's all in there and you're ready to rock, that's that special sauce time where it's we do Walt this way, or we calculate occupancy by this
Hmm.
method, economic and physical, and one other thing, or we need to be able to break our assets into different funds and fund structures, or different fiscal periods, um, or even different investment archetypes that might be driven by one of your other investment management tools.
Hmm.
That's that last 10%. Believe it or not, that first 90% is what Cornerstone is, which is regardless of what you're into, unless you're in something highly specialized like medical and things like that, which we do as well. Maybe there's 10% extra of specialty, but for
Yeah.
the most part, it's building, tenant unit lease, income expenses, and the basics. And from there, that's what we focus on and specialize in that first 60 days typically is to get you rocking there. And then we kind of step back and go, okay, now it's art of the possible time. Where do we need to hone this and tweak this so that this management group looks at it this way and this group looks at it this way and the CFO gets it rolled up the way he wants to. And on Friday
Yeah.
morning, the CEO gets a nice clean report. Like those are all the things. That's that last 10%. And I think what happens is people try to boil the ocean up front, try to do too much, and we typically have to step back and go, hey, if you don't know what your occupancy is or how many buildings you have active, what are we talking about here? Forget AI, forget future,
Yeah.
future tools and things like that. It's just, let's get the basics in place, build that nice cornerstone like you're building a house. We'll add windows and doors as we go. And I think that oftentimes the data in the software strategy with most groups is way overcomplicated. And what we oftentimes go back to with our existing clients and even new clients is I know you want to do all this crazy stuff, but if you guys can't even get like your rent rolls on a weekly basis, what are we talking about here? Like, let's start with the basics. Let's make sure you just have optics on the operations. Once we go there, then we can have a lot of fun. But we almost come back and change the way that they've interacted with their property management groups and their asset management groups. Because before, once a month or once a quarter was enough. Our goal is to get you to daily bread. And so that's what the Cornerstone Initiative is really based around.
Yeah.
I can also say, circling back to kind of the buying question earlier,
Hmm.
Matt, is just to add to what Taylor said, is I've also been down the road of you hire somebody to do it and you don't know what it looks like for a prolonged period of time. And then by
Right.
the time you get to see V1, it's not what you had, you guys discussed it, and just no fault of anyone's, right? Like everybody was on the same page when you had those discovery sessions or whatever. But then somewhere along the line, like the whatever, the ideas kind of diverged. And so what Cornerstone, our particular product allows you to do is, as a buyer, like the second you write that check, I can tell you from experience that the clock is ticking as far as like, okay,
Hmm.
now I got to deliver something with whatever I purchased. And so we allow you to get there in like 4 to 6 weeks where and even within that time, we're having strategy sessions throughout so that you as the lead stakeholder, the champion internally or champions, you're able to like shift Cornerstone to like make sure that it hits like the logo looks right, like everything looks right, so that when the people that you're ultimately going to be showing this to on your side see it, it resonates. You get
Mhm.
a lot of the like crap out of the way that like, it's just, it's a boring thing, right? But like we got SSO dialed in so all your users can get into the application. Like that type of stuff that like hurts adoption. We get all that
Yeah.
stuff out of the way like 4 to 6 weeks. Like you are up and running. And then to Taylor's point, then we really get to hone in on where I'll take like the school teacher approach. You are a snowflake, right? So we hone in on that stuff for you, like the specific reporting that's going to that is going to like make it or make it or break it or for your particular area of the business or whatever your use case is. We get all that stuff dialed in, but we get the nuts and bolts down with your core data systems in first via Cornerstone, and then you build from there, and then you have the air cover to do so because you already have a working product. So.
Mhm.
It's so important these days, right? Because technology decisions and spend is so scrutinized now. So it's critical to get a quick early win out of the gate.
Yeah.
So thanks for your commentary there. So digging into that just a bit further, kind of one layer deeper, George. So what and Taylor as well, please. But what conditions can a business unit leader, be it technology, finance, asset management, whatever the case may be, whoever kind of is driving this decision to move forward, what are like, I guess, some conditions that can create a successful launch? And do you have any thoughts on that, sort of on the customer side, preparing for a strong deployment and being ready, sort of for our team, I guess, if you will.
I have an opinion, but Taylor, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, it's on my wall, and I love the phraseology of data, data, data. I cannot make bricks without clay. And Sherlock Holmes,
Mhm.
and we live by it too. Like if you don't have control or access to your data, it's hard to build without that clay. And so I would say that preparation of a few things, just first and foremost, knowing where the skeletons are, is a great preparation tool. And most groups that do have um, big endeavors and big ambitions to get into analytics around the portfolio and leasing and acquisitions and dispositions and finance and things like that. They oftentimes will go they'll skip step 1A, which is data, and go right to all the things I can do with it without realizing that they need to first understand where their data is located, the type of data it is. Is it in an Excel spreadsheet or is it in a picture of a copy of a print of a PDF? And also even if you're working with if you're not vertically integrated and you're using third-party property managers, do you have even a relationship in your operating agreement that will enable you to request your data on a regular cadence to be able to do anything?
Right.
Because oftentimes you'll get that like, oh, I need to have real-time analytics on my portfolio. I'm like, okay, well, your property managers won't give you data but for once a week or sometimes once a month. So your endeavor is great, but your operating agreement says that they only have to give it to you once a month. So there might be some relationship building you need to do or some operating agreement updates that you mandate,
Mhm.
or especially if you're acquiring new buildings, that you're sticking in your operating agreements. Like I have access to my data perpetually whenever I want, whether it's via core ERP or it's through a managed CRM or whatever it might be. Those are the things that we typically have people investigate early, right away, because it sets them up for success or prepares them for delays. And if you don't talk about that up front, you just say, "Oh yeah, we could throw it all over the wall. You'll be good to go. You'll be up and running in weeks." That's why we do that investigatory approach, if you will. We call it
Mhm.
the investigatory journalism of like, all right, let's write a story about what's going on in their profile. Any client we've had that's had their data readily accessible, or even partners we work with, I mean, we can rip. It is fun. It's exciting. They're prepared, and we can tell when they're prepared, and they know what they need. Um, Ones where they aren't prepared or they don't have access or don't control, that's where we have to really make sure that they're preparing themselves. That there's going to be some tough conversations or a barrage of emails and phone calls that might come into play to get our arms around it and get access to it. Especially if you're dealing with a property management or a service that you're working with that is highly contentious about sharing your own data. That's where things can get odd too, where you start to realize for the first time, wow, I pay for a service or pay for a management service, and they don't even give me my data when I request it. Something's not right here.
Yeah.
So I would say that is the pitfall number one is access to data. It sets
Yep.
up the entirety of your future vision planning, I think, around data.
Yeah.
And
George?
And
yeah, oh, I was going to say, Matt, what you didn't hear Taylor say is anything about like dirty data, because I think that's like the biggest fake news out there right now. Like that you have to get your hygiene in place. Like your data has to be perfect before you can use it for this, that. Like I fake news is probably the wrong word. It's an important thing to be concerned about, but from
Not a deterrent to start.
it should not be a deterrent to start.
Yeah.
And so Navigator, we've gone through just uh, all sorts of pains, and circling
Right.
back to the underlying like architecture conversation we had having at the beginning, of making it so that you can come to Navigator the way you are. uh,
BYOD.
Right. Right. And then through like the aforementioned like discovery process, we figure out where everything lives, who has access to what. Those are actually the important questions. And then from there, we can handle the data architecture piece of it. Like that I don't want to say it's not hard, but it becomes hard when you don't have the access, when people don't want to be honest about like who own or about certain things like on the backside. Once we figure all that out, the data architecture piece is it's an approachable problem. We can put a timeline on it for you.
Mhm.
And then what we found, circling back to the cornerstone conversation, is like there's kind of a pretty good process that formula that we've come up with, a recipe that we've come up with to make sure that you can show that success, quickly. But I don't. I just wanted to. Sorry, because I see it on LinkedIn all the time. Is how dirty
Yeah.
that is. Yeah, like it is. But if you're honest about it, and like you address it, and you come to like a partner like us with that, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
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 And it's worth it, right? Like rolling up the sleeves and whatever's around the corner, whether it's data cleanliness or readiness or access, like addressing it and getting your arms around it is going to be
Well,
worth it.
and from a from a platform like engineering standpoint, we've also gone through pains to make sure that like say if you well, George, we can't possibly, we just have everything in spreadsheets. We've built an AI uploader tool and functionality so that you can take your spreadsheets that who knows what Peter, Paul, and Mary have all dumped information into, that will clean it for you and put it into Navigator, so you can still analyze your data and figure out where things are at. So, I mean, we just really, it's a hard part. Like we've really tried to meet our clients where they're at, because I mean, most of our user base are revenue generating people, and that's all they do all day is meet people where they're at. So I think it's weird to have a technology provider say, come back to us in 6 months, or oh yeah, we can handle that, but it's going to be an extra, and they throw a big number at you to do all that underlying work. Like I don't think that that's I don't say fair, but like we don't do
Yeah.
Right.
that.
Meet you where you're at. It's an important part of the
Exactly.
process. Yeah. And I think what's unique about, I've always relished this as a navigator myself, is that what's unique about our platform is our team, and that most of
Mhm.
us, if not all of us, come from real estate. So when we go meet with a client that's a big institution or a Fortune 100, or a REIT or whatever it is, and we sit down with them in the room and they hear us speaking with them about their data and their buildings, they start to realize that we probably know more about real estate data than they do. You don't have to teach us dock doors and clear heights and slab thicknesses or affordable and light tech in Section 8. It's part of our DNA as a business. So it's a different kind of engagement where you're not trying to like force your data into a tech platform that kind of knows real estate. We've actually flipped the script where our engine is a real estate engine and we are a real estate company first. And I think that it makes the engagement process really fun, where you can have real conversations with even our account management team after you've been deployed, of like, hey, we're thinking about wanting to be more focused around how we look at above the line and below the line transactions and forecasting better for our capex. Our team's like, sure, here's some anecdotes of best practices of how we've done that before. It's not well, what's capex? It's very different
Yeah.
conversation. So I think that's a unique feather in our cap that we continue to grow with, and every team member that comes on board to Navigator, we make sure that they get a real estate a degree as part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that team, and then we'll wrap it up shortly after that. But a big piece of the value in, as you alluded to, Taylor, is the team, but also more specifically the data engineering team at Navigator. So and George, that's a big side of where you spend your time day to day. So maybe talk a little bit about just what customers can expect, and why a data model is a critical step in their journey and how we support that.
Sure. So for any customer inbound or existing, what we're doing is putting everybody on a modern data architecture. So just modern medallion data architecture. So bronze, silver, gold. So bronze, raw data in; silver, we're transforming that data in gold. It's ready for consumption by either Navigator, like our platform, or external tooling, or whatever it is. And so that's a component of the data engineering process for every one of our customers. And then where I would say we are especially well equipped, I would say, is our data engineering team has been around for a while, and I'd include Taylor in that. He does a heck of a like on his own. And has is that we've had ongoing relationships. Matt, I mean, you have background with MRI. We have
Mhm.
just longstanding relationships with the biggest data providers in commercial real estate. And then on the other side, even like ERPs like JD and stuff like that. Like we, if you have a problem accessing data, getting data into a certain area of the business that you're looking, we've probably addressed that before. And so I'll say that about our group, and that's independent of the platform, which does a lot with what we get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've experienced some of that firsthand, and it's awesome to see what we're able to do here at Navigator and results we deliver. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Last but definitely not least, I wanted to get your I guess latest and greatest, and as a technology leader, just your perspective on, call it, the modern sort of world of infosec. And if you could just talk a bit about, how we're architected, and for large institutions and REITs, and, everybody's, has sensitive data, right? But for those who maybe are even more sensitive to just privacy, security, protection, can you talk a little bit about how we ensure that we deliver the best possible posture for our
Yeah,
customers?
yeah. Because from a platform architecture standpoint, we want the application just for our business users to work right out of the box. That's table stakes for anyone we're talking to. But most important question for a CISO, CIO is almost always going to be on the risk side of
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
And as it ought to be, right? Like that's incredibly important with the type of data that we're handling. So we talked about it a little bit at the front end of the call, but just put a point on it. Navigator, we're an Azure shop really through and through on the back end. So Microsoft Fabric based, Defender for Cloud, like everything that we build, it sits on that bedrock, and we like that because one, I mean, we have deep relationships on the Microsoft side, certainly from even from like a company construction standpoint. So one of our main investors ran Windows back in the day. So we like that. I come from Microsoft background, but we like the way that they build, because they build like very thoughtfully. So
Mhm.
we're not in the business of taking a really unnecessary risk. We're not trying to create content really quickly or something, or cool videos or anything like that. Like we're really trying to address what we've been talking about all along, which is data hygiene, and who has like the right access to things, like
Mhm.
the right permissions, those type of things. And Microsoft is really focused on that as an organization, and what they allow us to do both on the underlying Azure side from an access standpoint, and then how that rolls up into the platform. Like we love that. It gives us a ton of flexibility as to you as a customer, how you deploy the Navigator platform to fit your needs, so that the right people have the right access to the right things at the right times, and they can't pull data out if you don't want those type of things. That's critical, and that's table stakes from the information security standpoint. And then so that's kind of the stake. And then the sizzle on top of that is we're Angular and .NET front end. And so the front end of the application, the reason we went with that tooling is because that the way we see it, as best we can, that future proofs us as far out as we can see. So like Angular front end, that's like YouTube. So that support for that isn't going to go away. We like the modularity of that. We like the way that it allows us to deploy safely and smoothly and provide like a very just a seamless experience for the business users who could, probably care less about what it is. But that's why we chose those tools, is so that we can deliver that steady experience for them.
And it's responsive to desktop, mobile,
Very
tablet.
fast. Very fast. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, really appreciate that, George. I think that about wraps it for us. So we appreciate you joining the program. Would you join again if invited back?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll see.
Awesome.
We'll see. We'll see what the people
Okay.
say if they need a
I think
round.
we might do
I'm
an
terrified.
we might do an impromptu Catalina wine mixer version in a couple of weeks.
There we go. I was going to say I'm terrified of rejection, so I wanted to make sure you'd say yes. Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. This has been awesome, gentlemen. And we'll look forward to regrouping next time on Between Two Buildings.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Taylor.